we're better place to start this week than a top 5 on beards. Beards to keep us warm. So we've broken it down to two categories this week. One an AFL one, and one more of a worldwide sports thing. So I'll get you to roll with your AFL version.
So my AFL ones were now the top. The I'm going to go 5 up or down. Up. What is it? 5. Yeah. So number 5, I had Maxi Gawn. Now Maxi's had some pretty beards over the time, but check out this one. He's looking good in this one. It's one of his best. And then at number 4, I've got old Humphrey, Justin Westhoff. They call him Humphrey for a reason, because with that beard, he just looked like he was Humphrey B. Bear. If you remember that, kids, way back when. My number 3 was Danny Southern. Now, Danny Southern, rough and ready, Danny Southern. He had some good beards back in the day, but this one was exquisite. He's just got the nice smooth sides with the goatee hanging down. Still a beard because he's got some side fluff, so he still rates. If anybody wants to argue the point, if you got stuff on the side, it's a beard. Now Jimmy Martell, this one is magnificent. Looks like a 12-year-old kid with a huge beehive on his face. That is just one of the best beards I've ever seen. And my number 1, like, this guy could have filled out the top 5. He's had some great beards over the time, but you got to look at this one. Just the hair, the beard. He just looks like he's just rolled out of a cave in the middle of winter and just looked around and gone, what's going on? And that's Michael Hurley. So that's, Michael, you get the number 1 spot on my list of AFL players. Liam?
So mine being world sports, it's a dog's breakfast. We've pulled them from all parts, every sport you can imagine. And this is the top 5. So starting at number 5, I've gone with South African great, number 3 batsman, Hashi Mamla. Now, his beard's probably more of a cultural thing. And maybe his beard might have rated higher if he kept the mow a little bit longer. There's been phases throughout his career where there's been no mow, or it's been a very thin mow. Unfortunately, I think you've got to have the full mode before you can advance up to this because there's some pretty impressive ones here. Number 4, I've gone with W.G. Grace, the great English cricketer. Now, we've seen pictures of him through the years. No one's seen him live. No one's seen that impressive thing live. But what makes it impressive is there was no beard products back then to maintain and grow. So that's why he's got to have the fourth spot. Now, number 3 might be controversial because it's not long, but it's impressive. The thickness, the fullness, I've gone with James Harden. Anybody who has nicknamed the beard deserves to be on the list. And so he's taken the number 3 spot. Number 2, again, some people may disagree. Maybe it's a feel-good factor. This guy served us very well. Milay Jedinak.
Good on Milay.
Impressive beard, impressive captain. Led the Socceroos for so long and so well. And then I've gone with someone that you might be familiar with.
Familiar with him?
Brett Heisel from the Steelers.
Impressive beards.
Very impressive beard. Viking-like on the man.
Very much, mate.
Nice, full length, and a nice bit of wave in there. So that's who I've gone with for our number 1 position.
Have you got any honourable mentions?
Yeah, look.
I think there's a couple I might have thought of at the top of my head that you might have missed. You got any honourables?
Yeah, mainly from the WWE world. And I haven't stuck them in here because, again, a lot of people question whether WWE is a sport. We know that how hard they work.
Yeah.
But I would pull up a couple. Tommaso Ciampa.
Yeah, that's
phenomenal beard. You miss it when it's gone.
Yeah.
Luke Harper.
Yeah, that's good beard.
Eric Redbeard, Rowan.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
And then you could even throw in Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
A couple that have come off the top of my head.
Another one who looked like a 12-year-old.
Well,
go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, who have you got?
Yeah, my honourables would be Charlie Dixon. He's had some massive beards over the years. He almost made the top 5, but I couldn't leave Gorney out.
Yeah.
And I couldn't leave Westhoff out. So.
And you're missing that beard?
Yeah, definitely missing that beard. And Basher Hawley. Basher's had some good beards over that journey. Yeah. So they were my 2 honourables, I think.
So inevitably, every year we get to the winter months, there's issues that come up, and it seems to be problems every year. This week, there's Kane Corns coming out on his AFL volcano segment, calling out the Crows for ducking. Now, I'm biased because it's my team involved, so I'm going to throw the question to you. Looking at the Crows and how they drew free kicks on Friday night, 9 coming from high tackles.
Yeah.
Where do you sit on this? Is it a case of?
Yeah, go on.
I'll finish the question because I'm going to shape it a little bit, given that I'm not really going to contribute too much here. Is ducking the problem, or is it poor tackling technique?
Well, I do think it's not just the Crows. So I don't know why I can understand why he singled the Crows out, because he's looking at that game. It's a 5-point game. Some of those free kicks did shape the obviously the end result. So he sits there and he thinks, okay, what's the topic of the weekend? So he pulls that up. It's every game. You watch every game. Every player's going lower. They were supposed to stop that driving with the head. So you picking up the ball and then you take that 2 or 3 steps forward with your head down still instead of coming up. And I was supposed to stop that, but obviously, they haven't. So, look, and a lot of it is tackling technique too. There were some clumsy high hits on the weekend that I saw in your game as well. Look, some of it is because the player's turning too. So if you're picking up the ball, you want to go left or right, depending on, your foot. You can drive off that foot, which also brings you down lower. But there is a weakening of the knees. And we do see that with some of the Hawthorn players, the Wizard and Ginnivan. We've seen that over the years with others too. It's not just those two.
Yeah, we've seen I spoke about this off camera, and you've just highlighted one of the things that I was going to mention was the driving out of stoppage, because you have a look at the players that drew those free kicks. Peatling, I think, drew 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Now, he's a burst from stoppage player, and he's driving. He's not looking to initiate the contact.
Yeah.
He's looking to drive forward. So inevitably what's happening is when you drive, like you said, you lock, and then you really drive off your legs. So to me, again, trying to not get too involved with this question, but I feel as if it's driving out that's causing the lowering of the body, and then poor tackling technique. Yeah. Because I'm seeing a lot of players try to tackle from around the way, from the ribs, instead of going lower to lower base in case there is a potential to slip up.
That's right.
And then catch high. So
I think players are smarter now. They know that if you get caught in this area, you can drive up and over, and you can get high contact, because it's just a matter of dropping a little bit lower, or you just shrug your arm and all of a sudden that arm's around your neck. So, look, it's interesting. It's something the AFL needs to address, because obviously you don't want that in the game, but it's been in the game for so long. Right.
Yeah, look,
what are you going to do about it?
And to be truthful, I don't have a problem with it.
Well, I do if it results in because they did bring in a rule that said
if you don't,
that's right,
you're not paying it.
They're not paying it, or it goes against you. Now they seem to have forgotten that whole rule, or we get to that. Like I
don't think the umpires are capable enough to determine whether it's a player.
They seem to be able to come to that determination when it's guys like the Wizard, or it's Ginnivan, or it's some of these other guys who are known for that, who have been highlighted in all these shows, and they show them and they go, look at what he's doing.
Public perception.
Yeah, that's right. So then the umpire starts looking at it and they start picking on the individual rather than the action. So they are missing high free kicks, which are genuinely high free kicks, because of the player and not because of the action.
Yeah.
So we're getting to that point now where something has to be done. Like, they have to do something, because you say you don't worry about it. I hate it. I think it's just an absolute scourge of it, the game at the moment.
But I watched that game. It wasn't anything that really stood out for.
Yeah, that's what
both sides did.
Again, I don't know why he picked your game, but there were probably better games. That's right. There were probably better games that he could have looked at and gone, yeah, look at this.
I think it's games driving up clicks and.
Well, that's it. And I think you're right. I think
So moving on to something that's very, very goes hand in hand with this, HIA. Yeah. On the weekend, we saw 2 incidents on Friday night, where Lachie Neale got tackled, driven into the ground, and he didn't come off. No. Didn't get assessed. Then you had Zorko get bumped by Neil Bullen, goes down, bangs his head with whiplash.
Yeah, you can see that. That was dazed.
No one called them off at all.
He was dazed. You look at Zorko, he was not there.
No, he wasn't. And then you go to Sunday night, and Adam Chera and the commentators banged on. I was watching the Fox.
Yeah, that's right.
commentary.
You're spot on. Yeah.
And they were arguing, why isn't this bloke?
That's right. And he should have been, because you could see he got up and he was wobbly and he was not there. He should have been. And we've got to get to the point with the umpire. If the umpire sees that, he needs to say, hang on, stop. You need to come off and order them off. Not just this, oh, well, it's up to the club or it's up to the team to do it. When if they're serious about this, then it has to be up to the umpire.
They're using the video reviews.
That's right. And how long does that take? Yeah.
Down to tell the bench.
That's right.
Get him off. They shouldn't have needed to.
The thing is,
if you've seen a player bump his head, pull him off, assess him.
Especially if it's Zorko. I agree with you. The Zorko one and that one last night with Chira would just, look real. And even the Lockie one, I thought, oh, that's, So you're spot on. Totally agree with you. And they've now got an independent doctor sitting behind the fence who, if he believes that the club doctor didn't make the right decision, can now intervene and go, no, you've got to get him off.
You've got two idiots on the sidelines looking at the footage going,
That's right.
So him off. And then one person can be assessing him, one person can be reviewing the footage, and then they put their information together. That's how it should work.
So, I agree with you.
The question behind that is, is it just a piss taker exercise? And I think we've answered that. It is. This is something that they've stated they've got in place that's supposed to protect them against lawsuit, but they're not actually serious about it. So Peatling misses a game for his tackle, one game. I don't think anyone's going to argue that he shouldn't.
Yeah. But
you can't then have that in place.
That's right.
And then not, protect the player that actually had that knock.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. They're dropping the ball here. Like, this is just, it's too much grey. It's almost like they've just built this grey area. And then no one wants to make a decision. And I think the simplest thing is the guy on the field needs to be the one who makes the decision. The umpire needs to be the one, because if he sees it, and he can see, like you might have to go back to the video to see Chera wobbling around and dazed and looking confused and not really sure where he is. I mean, his teammates were, come on, mate. Like, let's go, buddy. Come on.
He always put on a match day report. So if an umpire's able to assess that's a match day report, well, then you get Lockie Neal off that ground and you get him assessed.
And he did it without, was just bang.
Yeah, so you're on a report.
All right.
So then, duty of care, umpire, send him off.
That's right. You're spot on.
But the clubs can now stop the game and pull that player off.
Yeah.
So then why has that not happened?
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. It is. It's getting even greyer than it should be, and I think they're messing this up. They just need to have a hard and fast, and get on with it. Because they introduced, how long ago did they introduce the independent doctor?
Yeah.
Are we any further down the line?
Have you ever heard it been activated?
Not really, because the clubs know that look at Port. What did they cop? A $200,000 fine, $100,000 suspended for.
So then you have every right today to be bitter about the Lions not copping that.
Yeah. So look,
because not only was there one incident, there was two.
Yeah. Agree, but they won't. The AFL won't go after them. They won't. No, it's just not happening. Like, we see that the difference between the first and the second of it. Like, it's just become crazy. They're toothless at the moment, the AFL. They're making the clubs make the decisions. You look at the Willie Rioli thing where they went to the club and said, we think you should miss. And then you look at what happened with Bailey Smith.
Yeah.
They pretty much went to his house and said, dude, we think you should not go play this week so we don't have to suspend you.
That's mafia-like.
I mean, you are the custodians of the game.
Yeah, come out and say it.
Come on, just say, look, he's, he copped a week and make it known, because then if any other player wants to do that, they know what's going on.
100% agree.
They know what's going on.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I cannot argue that. And like you said, if you could kill two birds with one stone. One, you get Bailey Smith to pull his heads in. Two, you let everyone know that, hey, if you make a joke about sniffing coke, out you go.
That's it. Out you go.
Yeah, that should be a deterrent.
Spot on.
But again, like you said, the AFL make it.
They don't want to look bad. That's the thing. They just don't want to look bad. And everybody knows what happened. I mean, it's not a secret what happened. Paul basically came out and said the AFL told us we had to step him down.
Yeah.
Right. And then we get reports that they turned up to Bailey Smith's house and had a chat to him. And then the next thing we know, he's out of the game.
But it's like the Willie Rioli thing. They were scared to smash him because of the history with the Rioli family. And it's culturally a sensitive issue.
Willie had, the Rioli thing had nothing to do with, it was a disciplinary thing. Just come out and say, we don't accept anything on any level.
Yeah.
We don't accept Willie copping it, and we don't accept him giving it. Yeah, like you can't. This isn't a victim circumstance where you can turn around and go, well, they picked on me, I get to pick on him. It doesn't work that way. So you need to be firm on it and just say, we're not accepting either side.
Yep.
We understand Willie's got some issues and family issues, and there's things that have happened in the past which we're truly sorry for that happened to the family. You don't have to admit anything, but you can't then turn around and go, well, nothing to see here. He's threatened 3 players. What was it, 3 players?
Yeah, 3 players.
In the end, they figured out it was 3 players, and like the first one, they were willing to go, okay, well, we'll let it go. And then 2 more come forward, and it's all of a sudden they think, oh, we've got a problem here. We're going to make a stand. But that didn't really make a stand at all, did they?
So I got a question about the AFL and their incompetence about what venues this teams play at.
Look, I just don't know whether it's worth some of these teams going where they're going. I mean, GW, if they played that game in Sydney, I don't know if they beat Port or not, but playing it in Canberra, I know we want to grow the game. I understand this. For anybody who says, we do it to grow the game, the game is the game. It's massive. It's the biggest sport in Australia. Taking it to Canberra, to me, isn't going to grow the game that big. It's not going to make it that much bigger by going to Canberra. And it's a smaller ground rather. So, and then but I do understand clubs struggle with finances, and these give them a chance to make some money. We saw Melbourne go to Darwin, was it?
Yep.
Alice?
Traeger Park.
Yeah, Traeger Park. Yeah. So they went and if that game had been played in Melbourne against St Kilda last week, they'd probably win it.
Mm-hmm.
But you end up in Alice and you drop a game. Now, that could be the difference between making finals or not.
The difference between them making finals and not could be their straight kicking.
That's right. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Too. Right. I mean, I understand the whole Tassie thing. That's 4 games. That's a decent part of but still, I just think we're better off playing these games at bigger grounds where you can get the people in. Like Mars just drives me mad. Why are you playing games in Ballarat, especially when it's being redeveloped? And you can only get 5,000 in. I knew when we played the Bulldogs over there, I knew like a lot of supporters who were going to go over, but couldn't.
If your club's not kicking up, just think about that. And the fact that, when the Crows, your rivals, are now going to play them at.
That's right.
I don't know what your club's doing. I would be hammering the AFL about that. That's a disgrace.
It is a disgrace. You're right.
It's compromising your season.
It is. And the whole reason they now decided to play it at Marvel was because they now realise that game could be huge at Marvel, whereas if you go play them on Mars,
5,000.
Yeah, 5,000 again, 5.5. So why would you want? And Crows supporters travel. Don't worry about that.
Yeah,
they'll show up in numbers.
Yeah, I mean, who would want to turn up to Ballarat though?
That's right. So and you're right. They never should have played that game, Port and the Bulldogs at Ballarat. Never. Yeah. Given that the ground was being redeveloped. But of course, they say, we've got a commercial agreement. Play 3 games, 4 games next year then, or play 2 years in a row, play an extra game to make it up. Doesn't mean they lose that. It just means it has to be postponed.
No, it's redistributed.
That's right.
Next year you can play more games at Mars than what you would this year.
Well, let's just scrap Mars. Why even going there? Like, what's Ballarat is traditional footy territory. You're not taking it to someplace new.
Look, I've had this conversation probably 3 or 4 episodes in our series so far. Mm-hmm. These games where you pull them out to regional areas, they should be kept for preseason only.
Yeah.
Keep the real deal at your bigger venues. And
that's right.
At the end of the day, the AFL needs to do a better job with redistributing wealth. Yeah. I can't understand why
I understand what
clubs are having to do that. If clubs are having to do that, then get the out of the AFL.
Mm. Yeah. No, I mean, we weren't selling games to China. Obviously, it was the opposite. It was St Kilda. It was the Gold Coast. But they basically came up with the whole idea of playing in China for that, and they just said, the other team can have it as an away game and they can reap the benefit of it. But we're basically the ones setting it up because we had all these,
Look, you did pretty well out of that commercially in terms of business deals.
They did. And they were talking about, we could be the first team to have 1 billion supporters. Like, it was just some joke that everybody in China was going to support Port Adelaide, and it was like become the biggest club in the world. Yeah, so it was a bit of a joke, but it was also, I know people who went over and absolutely loved it.
Yeah, mate, but that was different to than like the Bulldogs selling to Ballarat or Hawks going to Tassie, or
That's right.
then you've got Kangaroos going for some freaking reason out to Bunbury.
Bunbury.
What the hell?
I have no idea why they're heading to Bunbury, but anyway.
So yeah, different reasons for the China deal. That was purely business.
And I understand the Gold Coast having games up in what's the name, Cairns. You know, that could be a territory that they could actually build on. I mean, I do understand that. So, but in the end, if you're losing these games, that could cost you They could cost you your season.
It's simple as that. It could, but Kangaroos won't need to worry about that. I don't think the Bulldogs are going to have to worry about that.
But I'm playing in Tassie for a decent team, so the Hawks, could possibly be. I don't know what the Hawks could be after watching them play the Bulldogs. They look really good, and then next week they play you guys. They could look terrible.
Yeah, that's the case.
So in Tassie, by the way, adds to what we're talking about. If that game had been played in Melbourne, they probably got the bigger advantage playing you guys in Tassie than if it had been played back in Melbourne, either at the MCG or Marvel.
Yeah.
So, especially if it's a windy day, they know how to play the ground, whereas you guys would be like, what's going on?
True.
So it could be an advantage to them.
Yeah, it could be.
But anyway,
so
next question.
Yeah, Canberra. Let's go back to Canberra. Something happened after the final siren went.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that? What happened?
Well, it was just Willie was just in the crowd. He was signing autographs. He was high-fiving. He was taking selfies. He was, interacting with the crowd. Good old Vicenteri. Dante wanders over, says, "Hey, Willie, we're going in, sing the song. Come on, hurry up." Willie didn't care. He was signing autographs, taking selfies, having a great time with the crowd. So the boys had to stand around for a good, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, waiting for him to come in. I thought it was great. I thought, look at this. He's getting amongst the people. He's clapping, high-fiving kids, and he's shaking hands, and he's giving autographs and taking pictures and all that sort of stuff. But when someone says to you, "Come on, mate, we're going to go sing the song," please, mate, just go in and sing the song.
Devil's advocate here. So was he shitty about how Port have handled it?
Don't know. I don't know. Because the comments from the commentators, I don't know if you heard any of the comments coming from.
Yeah, it was in-house joke or something. Yeah.
So, and then, a few of them were saying he's taking the piss. He must be taking the piss. Yeah. So it seemed to me to be a deliberate act of, "You'd be waiting for me."
Yeah.
Which to me just goes to show how selfish it is, because you can't be bigger than the club. You can't be bigger than the playing group. You can't be bigger than the club. You can't hold grudges, because grudges get you in trouble in this business. Because if you prove, I heard that he wasn't a great teammate at West Coast, but that had to do with the crowd, the cousins he was hanging around with, the trouble he was getting in.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that sort of thing. So he comes here because he wants a fresh start. Now, you might be right. Maybe he is a bit salty on how they handled the whole, threatening thing. And as we touched on earlier, that he sort of thinks, okay, well, it's Willie time. Willie's going to take his time, and you guys can just wait.
Mm.
But I think that's the quickest way to be shown the door, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So, don't play dangerous games, because you could be heading back to WA and back to a situation you really don't want.
Yeah, and it's not looking good either way. But we'll leave that rubber and go to another rubber. I've got a question here. It's come from someone who's quite offended by my handling of West Coast. Steve.
Quite hard.
Yep. He wants to know, is there anyone on this show, so this would be you, that can provide an unbiased take on West Coast and where they're headed?
Look, I was checking in on the score. I didn't watch the North Melbourne game against West Coast. I was checking on the scores, and I was very surprised that they were, I think, at one point by about 20 points, was it?
Yeah.
So I was thinking they're going well. And I have watched their games a few times. The Geelong game, I thought they were good. So look, I do see bits and pieces of improvement. I think that they're heading in the right direction. So yeah, I think there is some positive stuff that will happen, but who's hanging around? That's going to be the problem. Your captain might be leaving, heading off to Hawthorn. what are you going to get for him? That's the other question. You might get something decent for him.
So your captain heads out. Culturally, that's not a good look.
Yeah, but it's not the first captain.
No, but it's not a good look though.
And I think West Coast supporters are pretty much resigned to the fact he's gone.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to shock them when he walks out. Like there've been some, captains who've walked out on clubs and you've been absolutely like, what's going on? Not Colbert, Lee Colbert, when he left, everybody was absolutely shocked when that happened. This isn't going to be a shock to anybody.
No, but I mean, he's a young bloke. He's yet to hit his prime years, and he's walking out the door.
That's right. He is because, and whether that's because he sees a better opportunity, a better chance to maybe win a premiership at the Hawks, or whether that's because he just thinks this team's going nowhere, I don't know. He was very remorseful about what had happened with the meeting with Sam Mitchell, which shows me some sort of maturity.
But if you get caught, of course you're going to be remorseful.
Well,
it's not good business not to be.
I'm not sure how the playing group, I heard the playing group weren't happy with him, which wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't be happy with him if it's my captain. He was doing something like that. Whether he's actually resolved that with the playing group or not, I don't know. Maybe someone can actually let us know how the playing group is towards him. But look, I think they're trending. They're not as bad as what they were last year. I think there's great improvement. I am seeing some really good improvement. See, Harley Reid's another one. Is he going? Will he hang around? Will you have him for more than 2 years? I think, these are all the questions that are really going to determine whether you are trending up or whether you're going to stay virtually in that bottom 2 or 3 for the next 2 or 3 years.
So I can't leave this one alone. I can't leave this. They're trash. They're trash. So their list build is trash. The way they're going about it is trash. So you have a look at what they've done last year. They've gone out and they've recruited those mid-tier players. They don't come cheap. So that money that you should be stockpiling at a time you're going through a rebuild, and this is why the Crows are able to spend now and pull these players in that they need and what. Yeah. They're going to price themselves out. So when there's a player coming to WA, if Freo have done that, I haven't looked into Freo's list management and how they've gone about things, but surely they've got a stockpile that they can call upon because money gets thrown around from them in regards to water, and that's it. Tells me that they've got something there to throw around.
That's because you're paying $2 million, almost $3 million at Freo. So
so West Coast rebuild is a dog's breakfast, and they're going to find themselves in a world of hurt if they continue to go like this. They lose a Reid, they lose an Allen. Tasmania's coming in. When are they going to lose those players? If they come in when Tasmania's
they're in trouble. They're definitely
picks
that's right. They're
so their list build is a disgrace, and they had a home game handed to them by North Melbourne, and they crapped the bed. They're going to be bottom of that anyway.
I didn't see that. I didn't see the game. I was watching the scores. And then all of a sudden I just thought, wow, what happened there? So obviously the second half did not go the way they expect.
Yeah.
But look, I do see positives, and these things take time. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to be automatically, like next year, you're not going to be pushing for the 8. I can guarantee you that. I don't want to be
disrespecting the competition and the way the competition is set up. They have to rebuild and rebuild properly. Look, I don't care where they end up in 10 years, 5 years, or even 20 years. I don't care.
Yeah.
But the way they're going about it, they're going to end up, look at Carlton. They're going to end up in that same position of Carlton, floating between 14th and
being lines. You can say the same thing about St Kilda. You can say
but that's the way they're heading down. Yeah. So that's why I'm so tough on them, because they've gone from being a great club, and look, every side goes down. Yeah, it's the nature of the competition, but it's how you go about it. And it was their denial that they were heading that way.
Yeah,
and then once they hit that way, they denied that they were in a rebuild, and now they're still denying the rebuild. So at some stage, it's going to really bite them and hurt them hard. That could end up being an absolute basket case in 10 years.
So I don't remember a lot about 2018, but I do remember thinking, wow, how did they make the grand final, West Coast? And then they win it, of course. So maybe that was one of those where you just pinch one and everybody lays back and goes, oh my God, how did we do that? Pinch one. If we're that good and we weren't that good, and so next year we're just automatically going to be a lot better. And I saw that happen at Port. They just fell in a hole, and we know what happened between 07 and 13. Like, it was terrible years. And I'm pretty sure some of the comments you're saying about West Coast now were said about Port back then. So it can happen. It can rebuild. You can rebuild.
I don't think though that you guys didn't disrespect the way to go about a rebuild. Though you just end up with a very young list, and every young list goes through world of hurt. We went through in 2020.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, just it's the arrogance. I think that's what annoys me the most.
I think there's still positives in West Coast. I don't think it's absolute.
Not with Don Pike at the wheel.
Well, maybe that's the problem. Maybe it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, look, I think if they can string together 4 quarters, I think they'll be all right. But that's going to be their biggest challenge now. Not dropping out of games, because we saw that in a few games this year. They've been right in there, competing for 2.5, 3 quarters, and then it's just that drop off. So, but you get that with young lists, but they're going to have to pinch one. They're going to have to find some confidence somewhere, because if you keep losing those games where you're in them at 3/4 time, it does take a toll. The playing group starts to think about, can we actually do this? So, yeah. So I don't think they're trash like we did.
Oh, look, if we get another question about West Coast next week, I'm going to bring in a garbage bag, and I'm literally going to throw the question in the bin. Like, oh God. What can be said? That the worst team in the competition, arrogant as hell. Let's leave it at that. All right. So let's change it.
Definitely going to be getting comments.
Welcome. Bring it on. Tell me I'm wrong. So let's go from an absolute rabble and a schmozzle to the Hall of Fame. You had a really good question about the Hall of Fame this week.
Well, I did. This one came from Mama Bear, and she wants to know, if you make 400, are you automatic Hall of Fame? Automatic. No, just bang, straight in.
I think so.
Yeah.
You don't get to play 400 games being a good player. You're generally a great player.
I don't think there's any duds who play 400.
No.
So that's for sure.
And I'd like to see the list of 400. I don't have it in front of me, but most of those guys are in there, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think Bartlett. Is Bartlett a legend now?
Yep. Yeah, I think he is.
So, yeah. I mean, you're looking at Bartlett, you're looking at Fletcher, you're looking at Sean Burgoyne. Who else was there? Let me think. Tutt, of course, Michael Tutt. I think he's a legend, isn't he?
Yep.
Bradley? So, no.
Did Bradley didn't get to 400?
He got to 380 something. Yeah. Is that it? Oh, and Harvey, of course.
Yeah.
Boomer. That's the 5. That's it.
And
so Pendles will probably get there.
Yeah.
Bokey, I'm starting to think, I don't know, but if he can maintain, he'll get there. And you seem to think Danger, but
that was until the hamstring.
I still think his hamstrings are going to, even if they play him out of the square, I still think he's.
See, if you play out of the square, didn't pick a hamstring, got a full season, you'd probably go, okay, maybe. But I think he's killed it.
Yeah. So maybe he's a maybe.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the next 3. I know Pendle's definitely. I'm not sure. I hope Bokey makes it. I really do. I think he deserves it. I think the club would love to see him make it. And then, of course, Danger. I think Geelong would do absolutely everything in their power
to try and get him there.
To try to get him there. Yeah.
And he could. He could if he can not.
Well, it might. The problem with that is it might take him an extra 2 years.
Yeah.
Especially if he's pinging hamstrings and losing 8 weeks, a time. So, yeah.
Yep. So I've got an interesting question this week. Comes from Philadelphia.
Oh, Philadelphia.
Yep.
Okay.
So question comes from KB. Okay. And his question was just wanting to compare what it looked like pound squatted.
Right.
From NFL players, elite NFL squatters, to the AFL. So the 2 examples he gave me was Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts, and they squat around 650 to 700 pounds.
Yep.
I did a little bit of hunting, and there's no AFL doesn't release those records out to the public, but there is someone on record, Levi Casbolt.
Right.
I think he's retired now, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
So just retired in the last year or 2.
Yep.
And he squatted.
Trying to knock his own teammates out.
He squats 418 pounds. Yeah. And according to what I could find, and even on AI, they reckon that's elite. That it doesn't get much.
418's elite.
418.
Okay. For an AFL player?
For an AFL player.
For an AFL.
Now, AFL compared to NFL, it's a lot of power, a lot of driving.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
so
a lot leaner.
Exactly. AFL's more endurance based.
Unless you're Quadzilla, like
Stuart Jennings.
Stuart or Ollie Wines,
Yeah. So a better comparison would have been the NRL.
Yeah.
And so I did a little bit of digging, and I'm going to butcher this guy's name here. Jason Maloto or something like that.
Yeah.
And he plays for North Queensland. So you might be able to work that out yourself.
Yeah.
When you look at North Queensland and their names, Jason T. And he squats something like 705 pounds.
Okay.
The next best I could find was David Clemmer, whose personal best was 661 pounds.
Okay.
So around about that mark.
Yeah, I don't think you don't need to have big legs in. Yeah, in fact, that's obvious disadvantage.
Yeah,
the heavier you are, the more sluggish.
No, and that's why NRL could they cross.
Well, that's a driving.
A lot better.
Yeah, that's a driving sport. Like you got to drive forward, you got to tackle, you got to. So it's about something like hitting you and you hitting another bloke, and it's about who pushes who which way.
Yeah,
and that's the same with the NFL, obviously.
And in my research of doing that, it was quite staggering to read. Some of those NRL guys have been approached by colleges in the United States to come try out.
Yeah.
And that they're knocking that opportunity down. So they must either love NRL or they just can't back themselves in to get to that next level, because it is cutthroat.
It is very cutthroat. Yeah, it's very elite. The NFL is very elite, and it's no guarantees. That's the other thing too. Like the only people who seem to get guaranteed money in the NFL are the quarterbacks. That's it.
Yeah.
So
Jared Hayne can blow up a few bridges on his way.
Well, geez, the Haynes thing was a bit of a joke, wasn't it?
He's a walking disaster.
I never got why San Francisco, and he did well. That was the thing. When they put him in, he actually performed, and yet it was almost like they didn't want him to succeed.
Yeah.
It was, like, how can we have this Aussie showing us up? It was almost that sort of attitude. Anyway, the Haynes thing, he, in the end, he ends up cutting his own throat, doesn't he?
He did. He did come home and destroy himself, didn't he?
Yeah. So, that was an interesting time for good old Gerald. But, Gerald.
So I've got a little bit of time left. So I want to go back to the AFL and slot in one of your pet peeves just to get you going, get you revved up, get you a little bit of clickbait here. What would you do?
Sorry.
Third time this week. What would you do with the bye week? Because it's getting on both our nerves.
Jeez, the bye weeks just tick me off to no end. Do it in 2 weeks. Come on, just get this thing over and done with. What am I saying? Don't have a Thursday night game. All right. Condense it. Make it Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Do it in 2 weeks. This 5-week legal of buys is just a joke. Seriously. I just don't understand it, why they do it this way. You have a King's birthday long weekend where your additional Monday night, and you still have the 2 teams. Was it 2 teams having a bye? Play the whole round. Play everybody. If you're going to do it this way, play everybody so that at least you have a full 9 games on, and then next week those 2 teams, or the last week those 2 teams could have had the bye.
Do you know what
I just don't get it. And then in round 23, they're having 2 Friday night games.
Do you remember the good old days where there was a weekend where there was no football?
Yeah,
we can do that.
I don't know if I want a weekend with no football.
I could do it 1 week just to get them all out of the way. Yeah. Makes it a fair playing field for everybody.
No, I think if 1 week you had Friday night, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, so 4 games, and then the following week you could do Thursday, Friday, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. Just do the 5. There's your 9 games. Everybody has their buys. You knock it off in 2 weeks. You can roll into the King's birthday weekend. All 18 teams are playing. All 9 games are on, or whatever. Split it so that maybe last week you had 10 teams having the bye, and then you have the whole round this week, and then next week you have the other 8 having the bye.
Get it over. I can do a week without football.
Like,
just get it out the way.
No, I don't think that's not what they want. They want to do this rolling.
And broadcasters don't want that either. But at the end of the day, it's fair, it's equitable, it makes sense to just get them all in, get them out of the way.
Yeah. And then what's going to happen once Tassie comes in and we've got 19 teams?
Well, then that's your bye week.
I mean, it's going to get to the point where, how many bye weeks are we going to have a year?
I can't see teams having 3 buys, can you? Because then you talk about the pre-finals bye too.
Well, if you have 19 teams, and everybody has a week off, so that's one every week. That's up to round 19, obviously.
Yeah.
So for that following 5, you're gonna have to have 2 buys a year. There's no other way around it.
Yeah.
It has to be 2 buys a year, or you only have 19 rounds, which isn't going to happen.
But I mean, they'd have to stop that round 0 bullshit.
Well, I think they're looking to build it, aren't they? I don't know what to believe in anymore.
Yeah.
Some people have said they're going to actually stop it next year, and they're just
because potentially one of those teams could have 3 buys.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing that ticks me off is how you can have a team that goes into opening round and then has a buy in round 3 or 4,
Yeah.
and then has another buy in round 14, 15. I mean, who was it? Someone had the buy in like round 2, and there's now had the buy in round 11. I can't remember. It was one.
Was it Gold Coast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, Gold Coast didn't have their buy.
No, they couldn't have their buy.
Yeah.
But they had a really stunted start.
They did. They had a really
because they had the rain.
That's right. So they're going to actually play in that week off. Apparently, they're going to play Essendon in that week, that bye week before the finals, which could be very interesting if they're rolling into the finals in, who knows, 5th, 6th, 7th.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, you think about that. We all have a week off for the pre-finals bye. Why can't we do that for our normal buys?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, the thing about the pre-final buy is that's when they decide they're going to kick off the WAFL.
Because what it could potentially do is re-energize the season. Everyone's had a week off. Then you keep some of your marquee games over that week, and then you launch it with fire again, and that marks the start of, the last part of the season.
Yeah, totally agree.
I don't know. But anything's better. Let's face it, anything's better than what's been dished up these last 3
Well, I
seasons.
just don't understand why you spread it so thin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also, they know, this time of year, not many people, maybe some people are tapping in and out of football. Because the games that are on aren't marquee games. Sure, today, Melbourne, Collingwood, brilliant game. But Bunbury, North, West Coast.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it. Like Port and GWS, that must have been before the season started, thinking here's 2 teams who were deep in the final, or not deep. GWS went out and straight games.
It's a decent matchup.
There's a matchup, and it turns out to be 2 teams who are struggling. Let's face it, absolutely struggling.
Yeah.
So that turns into I won't say a fizzer, but it wasn't that as high a standard as what you would.
No. And the other aspect is, and we're talking about it before we come in, it's the weather played impact in some of the games as well.
Yeah.
So it does kill the quality of games. So, on Friday night, Crows, Brisbane, second place, third. Yeah. It wasn't as good a game as what it could have been.
Because of the weather. That's right. But to look at the lineups, Hawthorn Bulldogs before the year, you're thinking, wow, that's going to be a great game.
Under the roof.
You're thinking Adelaide are improved and Brisbane are the premiers. In Adelaide, that has potential to be a good game.
Yeah.
Port and GWS before the season, you're thinking, wow, these are 2 teams who were, top 4. Right?
Yeah, so they got lucky with this weekend.
Yeah. So, but then you chuck in North Melbourne, and they knew they had to have known North Melbourne and West Coast would be down the bottom. Richmond, and who did Richmond end up playing?
Sydney.
Sydney. Now, you would have thought Sydney, given that they made the grand final last year, that was going to be a one-way traffic, and in the end, it became that. But I thought Richmond played really well there for, majority of that game. But the weather was the telling factor in the end.
Yeah, it was. Killed the quality.
It definitely killed the quality. Yeah.
So let's go with our final shot. So I'm in the middle of a double header.
Yeah.
So I went Crows Brisbane and then Crows Hawks. So I'm going Crows to beat the Hawks in Tasmania.
Tassie, okay. I think depending on the day, I think that might be a challenging one for you guys. But yeah, especially if it's cold and windy and wet.
Yeah, I just hope the fact that it's Friday night, if you can't get up for this game, knowing you've got a weekend off the following weekend, then, pack it up, go home.
Yeah.
That should be all right.
Look, I'm going to put my neck on the chopping block, and I'm going to go Port to beat Melbourne in Adelaide.
Is that putting your neck on the chopping block?
Oh, I don't know. I'm going with
you sound like a very negative Port supporter.
No. I don't know if I'm going with that with real confidence, but I did look at all the other games. There wasn't.
See, so
either then to go against you and say, no, I think the Hawks are going to be the the Crows in Tassie, which
Yeah.
I think is a possibility.
It is.
But I will go different to you, and I think Port to beat Melbourne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
see that happening.
and given that we played, yesterday? What's today?
It's Saturday. Saturday night.
Yeah,
So
Saturday.
you've had a nice
We
break.
played Saturday, and they played Monday, so there's that extra 2 days. Yeah,
And the mood should be up.
and that was a tough game today. Melbourne played, so
Yeah.
it'll be an interesting one.
Yeah.
I think.
They don't
we
travel
get-
well either,
yeah.
Melbourne.
Well, they don't, and we're getting a few players back too. So I think, while I don't think we'll be around that 10 to 12 mark in position on the ladder, I don't think we'll make finals. But every win, I think, just helps boost, bring back a little bit of confidence in the playing group. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. But yeah, I blew my son's Geelong tip final shot. So
You know, I'm not supposed to bring up your failures here. We only talk about successes.
that was terrible. That was.
Yeah.
I expected more from Gold Coast, to be honest with you. But
Yeah, those fake tough sons.
yeah, that's it.
All right, bring us home.
All right. So, what do vampires? What do vampires cross the sea in?
I think I might know this one, but I'll let you say.
Blood vessels.